Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Padamahamsa Parivraja Acharya Shtota Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, good morning. We are chanting and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Verse 3. So we'll start with the Sanskrit. I will chant, and then devotees can also chant afterwards. So I'll start. Utshrija Sarvata Sangam. Hold on, let me see here. Vinyatanjita samstitihi Vaisakir jaha shishyo Gangayam svam kalevaram. Utsrija sarvata sangam Vinyata jitta samstiti Vayasakir jaho shishyo Gangayam svam kalevaram. Utsrija sarvata sangam Vinyata jitta samstiti Vayasakir jaho shishyo Gangayam svam kalevaram. Hare Krishna, devotees, would anyone like to chant the verse?
Hare Krishna. Utsrija sarvata sangam Vijñata jita samstiti Vayasakir jahau sishyo Gangayam swam kalevaram.
Hare Krishna. Ustrija Sarvata Sangam Vijñata Jitta Samstiti Vaiyasakejusau Sishyo Gangayam Swam Kalevaram. Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Utsrijaya sarvatah sangha vigyata jita sanstitah vyasake jaraho shishyo garayam sam kalivaram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Usrija sarvata sangam vigyata jita samstiti vaishaker jahau shisha gangayam sam kalevaram.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Utshurjya sarvatah sangam vignata jita samstitah Vaiyashankar jaho shishyo Gangyam Shwam Kalevaram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Utshriya sarvata sangam vikyata jit samsitaha vaya sakirjaha shishyo gangayam swam kalevaram. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Word for word. Utsrija, after leaving aside. Sarvata, all around. Sangam, association. Vinyata, being understood. Ajita, one who is never conquered by the personality of Godhead. Sangstiti, actual position. Vaya sakahe, unto the son of Vyas. Jaho, gave up. Shishya, as a disciple. Gangayam, on the bank of the Ganges. Svayam, his own. Kalevaram, material body. Translation. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyas, Shukadeva Goswami. And thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead. And at last gave up his material body on the bank of the Ganges. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word Ajita is significant here. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is known as Ajita, or unconquerable. And he is so in every respect. No one can know his actual position. He is unconquerable by knowledge also. We have heard about his Dham, or place, eternal Golok Vrindavan, but there are many scholars who interpret this abode in different ways. But by the grace of the spiritual master, like Shukadeva Goswami, unto whom the king gave himself up as a most humble disciple, one is able to understand the actual position of the Lord, his eternal abode, and his transcendental paraphernalia in that Dham, or abode. Knowing the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental method by which one can approach that transcendental Dham, the king was confident about his ultimate destination. And by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body, without any difficulty of attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Param Dristva Nivartate. One can give up all connection with material attachment when one is able to see the Param, or the superior quality of things. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand the quality of the Lord's energy that is superior to the material quality of energy. And by the grace of a bona fide spiritual master like Shukadeva Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything of the superior energy of the Lord, by which the Lord manifests his eternal name, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Unless one thoroughly understands this superior or eternal energy of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy However, one may theoretically speculate on the true nature of the absolute truth. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Pariksit was able to receive the mercy of such a personality as Shukadev Goswami. And thus, he was able to know the actual position of the unconquerable Lord. It is very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literature, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of a liberated devotee like Shukadeva Goswami. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadhati Svapandantikam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Good morning, devotees. First, let me start by requesting the blessings and forgiveness of all the devotees. I'm asking that you can bless me to say something that is in line with the parampara, and I am humbled and honored to be here and given the opportunity to speak at ISKCON Philadelphia and share whatever small realizations I may have so that the devotees can have a nice Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. So please forgive me for any mistakes or offenses that I may have in this talk that I am giving. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we have a very, this verse here, well, this chapter is very, very interesting chapter, somewhat difficult to understand from the material perspective, how such an exalted devotee and an exalted personality can end up in a position where he's cursed by what seemingly appears to be another exalted personality, in the sense that Parikshit is being cursed by a Brahmin. So we have some very somewhat challenging from the material mind aspects to understand in this chapter. But we get some clues in this verse about how we can come to a deeper understanding of the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam and ultimately of the supreme truth, Krishna. So I'll just read the verse again so that we can kind of just hone in on it. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyas, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the banks of the Ganges. So as we can see from the purport here, Srila Prabhupada starts out by giving us this, which he often does, specific words that are very significant that we should look at and try to go deeper into the understanding of. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions here, the word ajita is significant. And what is this ajita? Ajita is used a few times in the Srimad Bhagavatam as a name for Krishna, and that name means unconquerable. So Krishna is unconquerable. This is there's one other point, or I guess pastime, that this name for Krishna is used very specifically in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm going to test the knowledge of the participants. Does anyone know where else in the Srimad Bhagavatam where Krishna is referred to as Ajita?
Prabhu, in Samudra Manthan Leela, when,
Yes.
When he was holding the thing, right from the top, the mountain. Yes.
Wow. Amazing, Prabhu. This is very amazing that of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, you know this just like that. Yes. In the pastime of the churning of the milk ocean, Krishna is referred to as Ajita when he is manifesting himself as the tortoise on top of the mount. The mountain is resting on top of the tortoise. So these things are inconceivable, right? From the material perspective, we cannot understand the actual position of the Lord. And as Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here, the Lord is unconquerable by knowledge. Now, this is distinctly different than from the material perspective. We are taught to think that through our own efforts and through our own endeavors, and by understanding and learning, we can come to a point of knowledge. And that point of knowledge can give us the understanding that we're looking for. But here we see that actually it's not by our own efforts and by our own endeavor that knowledge will come to us. Because just like here, Parikshit is actually surrendering himself to a higher authority, to a liberated soul like Shukadeva Goswami. And this is how he is attaining the knowledge and the understanding of the Supreme, not through his own efforts and his own endeavor. But in one sense, Parikshit could have used his own efforts and his own endeavor to counteract the curse of this Brahmin boy that's coming to him. But he had the ability to see the broader picture. And this broader picture was that this was a destined, this was you could call it a pastime that was willed by the Supreme Lord to take place. And Parikshit knew that because of his higher understanding and his higher knowledge, that for him to use his own endeavor to try to change the outcome or to do something different than the will of the Lord, this was not going to be of ultimate benefit for himself or for all of humanity. So what he understood was that he should immediately at once go and give up everything that was material, every material attachment that he had. And as we could understand, these material things that Parikshit had he had so much. He was the king of the entire world, and he was able to give it all up. Right now, in the material aspect of things, we have a very difficult time giving up our attachments and trying to let go of these paltry material things that seem so important to us. And we're working so hard, but yet still we feel like we need to hold on to our material attachments. But what we find is that these material attachments are actually the things that are keeping us stuck in this material world. But we're ultimately needing to attain some knowledge and mercy from the spiritual master so that we can give up these material things. Now, this Ajita, so just a little bit more about this being, the Lord being unconquerable. Actually, like in the United States, there's a slogan. Srila Prabhupada makes this point in a lecture from Los Angeles in 1973. There's a slogan in the United States, which even the atheists say it, and they say it in schools. They say, "In God we trust." But in actuality, it's just a childish slogan when we say, "In God we trust." In actuality, we don't know who God is. We're just saying, "In God we trust," but we don't. How can we actually trust God if we don't know who God is? This is the process of Krishna consciousness. The process of Krishna consciousness is actually coming to the point of knowing and understanding God through the mercy of the spiritual master. But in the material conception of life, and what the superficial approach is keep everything at a very basic level, make the show of "In God we trust." But there's no understanding of God. We could never trust someone that we don't know. Like if we were to say, "I'm going to put my money into some bank," but I don't know what that bank is. It's not certified. It's just some guy on the side of the street that says, "Put your money in this bank." We would never do that. So in actuality, what we should understand is that this whole idea from the material perspective, that in God we trust, we should go deeper. We should understand, who is God? Where does God come from? Why should we surrender to God? Why should we trust God? And we can get that understanding from the spiritual master. We can get that understanding from the liberated souls like Shukadeva Goswami. See, for the most part, in the material world, we are just completely helpless. But we are thinking that we are very fortified. We have our fallible soldiers, our job, our family, our education, our beauty, our wealth. And we think that these things will protect us. But in reality, it's like we're in the ocean. So many places the material world is described like an ocean. And this ocean, if you've ever seen pictures, I'm sure we all have, of like the open ocean, it's a very fearful thing. Like ever since I was young, I always had this like fear of being out in the middle of open water with nothing around. And like, if you can imagine this, like the waves are just like going up and down, big waves splashing here and there, and there's no one around. We're like, just imagine being like way out in like the Arctic Ocean, and the waves are flashing, and there's no one else around. This is like our position in the material world, because we're like floating in this ocean, but somehow we think that we're very comfortable, because we've been stuck in this floating ocean our whole entire life. And it's like we're in this floating waves. We're getting crashed all over from one place to the other. And but we've got we've got a nice suit on, and we've got a little briefcase and a little plate. So we think that we're in a good position, but we're in a very precarious situation. We just don't realize it. But these highly elevated souls like Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami, they can see as this purport is describing, the padam drista nivartate. And this is from the verse here. This is the superior quality of things. When we're in this conditioned state, we're taking the lower things to be the highest things. Like in this purport here, Srila Prabhupada mentions this. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Padam drista nivartate. One can give up all connection with material attachment when one is able to see the Padam, of the superior quality of things. Sorry. But what is the superior quality? What is of superior quality? Is it a big house? Is it a Rolex? Is it a Lexus car? Is this superior quality? If we ask everyone in the world, we say, what is superior quality? Oh, first class silk, this and that. But what is that? Actually, these are like broken glass compared to jewels. What is these? These are all temporary things, but from the material perspective, we don't have that param drista nivartate. We don't have that ability to see the higher things. What is the highest thing? The highest thing is the internal energy of Krishna. It is the supreme energy that is not material. Nothing material has any real value aside from what it does to give us direction towards the ultimate goal of life. We have found ourselves thrashed about in this material ocean, thinking our position is very nice. And through the grace of the spiritual master, we are given the opportunity, and this Krishna consciousness movement through Srila Prabhupada to hook up to the lifeboat, to the actual ship, get out of the water and get on the ship, to come out of this low material energy. We have the superior energy, Krishna, and his internal potency. We have the material energy, which is the lower energy of Krishna, that from our perspective, we're just going through this eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And then we have this middle ground where the jiva is, we're going from one side to the other. When we have this opportunity, and what Shukadev Goswami is showing is through the Srimad Bhagavatam, is going to give to Parikshit is give up these material attachments, give up these things that are holding us in place, that are holding us in this lower energy, not allowing us to see the true nature of the higher taste, which this, does anyone know which verse specifically param drista nivartate comes from in the Bhagavad Gita? Chapter 2 is a very famous verse. Chapter 2, verse 59. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness.
Vishaya vinivattante nirahara dehina rasavajjam rasoprasya param drishtva nivartate.
Yes. So this is the point that Srila Prabhupada is making here, that the king was confident about his ultimate destination. He was confident. He had faith. He had full faith in his ultimate destination. What was his ultimate destination? The abode of the Lord. Goloka Vrindavan, the abode of the Lord. He could have counteracted the curse, but he knew this was a perfect opportunity. And we also have this perfect opportunity. We don't even know 7 days. We don't know if we have 7 minutes. So there is a level of urgency that we also should try to manufacture in our own minds and our own hearts, just like Parikshit had an urgency for the 7 days to focus on only completely absorbing himself in this. So to the degree that we have this faith that the ultimate destination is Goloka Vrindavan, the ultimate destination is giving up everything that is in this paltry material existence that we are holding so dear, the more that we can be convinced that this is the truth, the more that we can give up these attachments. And what we should also be aware of here, and it's important to note that this is not happening through our own knowledge, through our own efforts. And it is somewhat of like what's called a catch-22, or kind of like a paradox, in the sense that it is not our own effort that is allowing us access to this treasure trove of happiness in the spiritual world. It is the mercy of the liberated souls that it's the mercy of Krishna. But then, like, the question comes, well, then if it's mercy that's there, that's giving us access to this, then can't we just like sit back and just like, we don't have to work so hard. We don't really have to do anything. We can just wait for the mercy. On one sense, you could say, okay, yeah, that's fine. But from the acharyas and from what Srila Prabhupada has given us and directed us, actually, we need to work very hard in Krishna consciousness for a few different reasons. One is we need to fully engage ourselves in the service of the Lord, so that we can, in our neophyte stage, engage our energy, engage ourselves in the higher, it is higher, but engage ourselves in the service of Krishna to gain that taste before we have it. Somewhat kind of like fake it till we make it. Because if we don't engage ourselves and our energy in Krishna's service, we will engage ourselves in the material energy service. So to protect ourselves from, having come to this movement, having come to the point of getting knowledge and getting some level of mercy, we want to put our energy towards Krishna as much as we can and engage ourselves so that we don't get pulled down because of our weakness. There's a saying in I guess it's like maybe some kind of material thing, but it's like 90%, what is it? 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. So inspiration, at least for me, is very important to stay motivated, right? So there's this aspect of like relishing something as living entities. We're always trying to find enjoyment. We're trying to relish something. In the material world, there's so many things everybody wants to relish. You got restaurants and movies and baseball games and, fishing, and there's an infinite number of leisure activities that, that we're doing from the material perspective. We're always trying to relish something, but actually that's never bringing true satisfaction to the soul. So that relishing is always falling short. But in Krishna consciousness, instead of trying to relish and trying to enjoy this material happiness, we can relish the service of Krishna and find inspiration in devotional service. This is like a really important point to keep ourselves motivated in devotional service and in the spiritual path, is to check in and find, where are we lacking inspiration? And if we're lacking inspiration, that means that that somewhere, of course, to some degree at the base level, it's like we're lacking faith. We're lacking a true understanding, because if we're really, truly, fully convinced, then we can be inspired in any situation. But for my own self, at the stage of, very neophyte stage of devotional service, is that inspiration is very important to find this inspiration. And there's different things in devotional service that we have this like a natural kind of propensity to try to, that, maybe we find, like, I find that having friendships, like friendships in Krishna consciousness, are very important to be inspired. Having someone to connect with and talk to and feel safe with is very important. And sometimes, I know there was like, Krishna will send us those people. And, sometimes we need to go through some challenges and some struggles in Krishna consciousness. So, but I would say that just like seeking out some level of inspiration through, maybe we really enjoy cooking, we should just find some way to get ourselves inspired in Krishna consciousness if we're feeling like we don't have motivation, or if we're feeling like our faith is lacking, so that we can keep motivated and keep active on the path. We don't want to fall into a position of like feeling stagnant. Now, it's important that we keep in mind, though, that it's like we got to keep moving. 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. So we need that 10%. We need that inspiration. There's a principle it's like a material principle, but I think it might have some validity in this. It's called the Pareto principle. Has anyone ever heard of the Pareto principle? There was a Italian scientist who was doing all of these, who was doing some tests on different types of plants. And he found that there's a principle that in any given output, such as plants or plants that are growing, 20% of the effort will produce 80% of the result. So we think about this. In the material world, 20% of what we're doing is producing 80% of the result. And 80% of what we're doing is producing 20% of the result. So the idea is, if we focus on the 20% that's producing the 80%, then we can increase our results. That's the material idea, but we're not so interested in increasing material results. What we're interested in is increasing our devotion to Krishna. But this is, if we look at it like from the Pareto principle perspective, the 80-20 principle perspective, the devotional service and the effort that we put into Krishna consciousness it might be small, but it is actually producing everything of value in our life. And the more we put into the more that we put into our devotional service, the more value we'll get. So if we can increase that amount of devotional service and focus on Krishna, the other side of value that will come into our life is so much greater. Because in Krishna consciousness, it's like spiritual math. Spiritual math is the opposite of material math, right? Like, if what we give in devotional service, what we give in Krishna consciousness, it increases. I mean, material math, it's like, okay, if I give it 2 minus 2 equals 0, right? But spiritual math is like if I give you something, then I get more. So it's like it increases. We should break this this idea of this miserly concept that the more we give, the less we have. Because actually, the more we give, the more we get in the spiritual path. So we just checking my notes here real quick. Let me check in. So we're the main point that we're looking at in this verse with Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit, and this chapter that we're exploring, is that we're submitting to a higher authority. Parikshit is submitting himself to Shukadev Goswami. He has firm conviction, firm faith. He knows where he's going, but he knows that he must give effort, endeavor to get there. But he also understands that it's through mercy. And that what's the real endeavor, the basis of the endeavor for Parikshit is he's letting go of the attachments that he has for this material world. He's letting it go. How is he letting it go? Because he sees what's the superior quality. The superior quality of things, this is not the superior quality in the material world. What he's seeing is the superior quality of Krishna. And when we get that higher taste, just like what is described in 259, Padam Drista Nivartate, we're ceasing the engagements of the senses. The senses are like serpents. They're actually taking from us. They're robbing us. Because we're in illusion, because we're not able to see the true nature of what is reality, the subtle nature of reality. We are stuck seeing the gross nature with our imperfect senses and our propensity to cheat and be an illusion. We're seeing the gross matter, but actually the higher energy is in the subtle energy of Krishna. It's stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the spirit soul is so small, it's atomic small. It's 1/10,000th tip the tip of a hair. It's so small, it's not even material. It's what we're seeking after is the subtle spiritual higher energy. And so leading this through, it's not through our own endeavor. It is not through our own knowledge that will get us to that supreme abode. Srila Prabhupada makes these points in the purport. So much speculation. The Mayavadis, even the spiritualists that are not devotees, they're seeking after some attainment of moksha or attainment of Brahman realization so that they can what? They can merge into oneness. But what is this described here? Actuality, it's the variegated nature of, it's the split nature. We are not all one. There's a fragment. We're fragmented out from the supreme in eternal personal identities. And the bliss, that the highest bliss from, according to the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, the highest position that we can understand is to rekindle, to be aware of and establish our true identity as an eternal identity, personal identity, and our connection with the eternal identity that is Krishna. So we have to put in effort. We have to, put in effort, but with the proper basis, moving towards the proper goal. So superior energy means the internal energy of Krishna. This is the basis for what we are looking at. And we should somehow or other, we should stay connected to Krishna and stay connected to this movement. Srila Prabhupada, he is essentially acting as our Shukadev Goswami. Like we can surrender ourselves to him, to Srila Prabhupada, and he is the perfect guide for us. Being in this age of Kali Yuga, being in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, we're unlucky. We have dull minds, dull memories, short lives. we're on one side, we're in a very precarious situation, as I mentioned, very precarious. But on another side, we have so much mercy, and even the demigods are lining up to take birth in Kali Yuga. Why? Because we have this Harinam Sankirtan process, which in the other ages is so difficult to attain God realization, Krishna consciousness. But here we have this purification process of chanting and dancing, taking prasadam, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sankirtan Yogya, going out, chanting the names of Krishna. It is a simple, blissful process in this age of Kali. What else? But it is not, this age of Kali is not a blissful place. It is a place of suffering. We can see all around us that this world is from a material perspective is going to hell. But if we surrender and take shelter of this movement of Srila Prabhupada, just like Parikshit Maharaj did of Shukadeva Goswami, we can reach the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan. This requires faith. This requires our endeavor, but ultimately where it's coming from is descending. We're not endeavoring hard to make it up to the ladder of corporate success. We are endeavoring to be in a position where God notices us. And if it happens in this life, in 1,000 lives, it doesn't matter if we are making that endeavor, because that is the ultimate goal anyways, is to be in that position of devotional service. So I'll come to a point of, we'll open it up for discussion in just a few minutes. And I'll end with this anecdotal story that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the Journey of Self-Discovery. It's a very interesting story. So there was around the time when Krishna was present, there was a Brahmin, and he was reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this Brahmin was, in an assembly reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam for many people. And he was describing that Krishna is highly decorated. He goes out and goes out with jewels, wonderful ornaments to take care of the cows. And he goes into the forest and frolics all day with these wonderful ornaments and jewels. And so in the audience of that Bhagavatam lecture, there was a thief. And the thief heard this and he thought, man, there's some little kid in the forests of Vrindavan who's out there with a bunch of jewels. I should go to Vrindavan and see if I can find this kid. It'd be an easy target. So he had this intention. He thought, I could go there. I could make some real money. So but he had this qualification. He said, I'm going to go see Krishna. So he had this anxiety to like find Krishna, but why was it? So he could rob him. So he goes to Vrindavan. The thief goes to Vrindavan, and he finds Krishna out in the woods. Not that hard to find. Back in the day, Krishna's there. He finds him, and he said, "Oh, you're such a nice boy." He has, the thief's mentality. He puts on a show. "Oh, a very nice boy. You're wonderful jewels. Wow." And so he thought he could flatter Krishna. And then he proposed, and then after a little bit, he proposed, his real idea to Krishna. Said, can I take a few of your ornaments? You seem to be so rich. How about you let me have a few? Then Krishna said, no, I can't. My mother will be very angry if I give away the jewels. I can't give these away. So, Krishna was playing just like an ordinary child. So the thief became more and more eager to get the jewels from Krishna. And so in the process of him going after Krishna and trying to be eager to talk to him and focus his energy on Krishna, he was becoming purified. And at last, in the effort and endeavor that the thief was giving towards Krishna, Krishna in his mercy said, okay, fine, you can take them. And then at that point, the thief became a devotee immediately. And because Krishna's association, the thief became completely purified. So somehow or other, the moral of this story is somehow or other, we should come in touch with Krishna. What our motivation is will become purified through our association with the devotees and through our association with Krishna himself. So in this way, we should take inspiration and know that no matter where we are now, no matter what material attachments we have, whatever desires are still in our hearts, and whatever reason that we're coming in touch with Krishna, ultimately we'll become purified if we continue to stay connected to and in touch with the devotees of Krishna, the liberated souls like Shukadeva Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, and Krishna himself through these spiritual teachers. So like this, I will stop here. And if there's any questions, concerns, objections, anything that anyone would like to say, or any questions, I will do my best to try to answer. Please share anything that may have come in this lecture. Hare Krishna. I know whenever someone in a class opens it up, there's always it's like this moment of silence. It's like, okay, wait, what, I feel like, and I always think all right, what do I have to ask? What should I say? But I can never come up with anything either. So because I have a dull brain, but.
One thing I will say about the class is that, Max Prabhu, yes, you can go ahead. You have taken your class up a level today. There is definitely, when you said in God we trust today, something just was, you could see that you put your trust in God and you went full force. I mean, there was definitely an animated Sasi-sekhara Prabhu today.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Max Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for such an empowered and inspiring class, Prabhu. I really resonated with what you meant about what you mentioned about inspiration and how important it is to keep that going throughout our devotional lives. So my question would be, how do we gradually put more trust and devote more awareness of how valuable this spiritual process is, and in that way kindle that fire of inspiration?
I know for myself, I can say two things: is association with advanced devotees, which, I mean, I'm going to say things that we've all heard so many times, but we have to, I think it's worthwhile to reiterate it, because association with advanced devotees that we feel safe and comfortable with, that we can share our minds and our hearts with, that you kind of know how to reciprocate, that not know, but that are able to reciprocate with us. And through reading Srila Prabhupada's books, staying connected to the message, that for me is a great way to feel inspired, because there's certain certain cantos and certain chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam that are super inspiring to me. And I just read them over and over again. and keep like going deeper and deeper and deeper into that specific message of that chapter that I find inspiring. I always I make this recommendation to people that I'm distributing books to, or that may have been reading a book. I say, like, if you as you're reading this book, because I hear the objection many times of people who have tried to read the Bhagavad Gita, or that they like flip through the book and they say like, oh, this is like difficult, or there's like a context that's difficult to follow. I say, if something is challenging, just put it to the side and focus. And when you find something that's inspiring in any of these books, focus on that particular verse and that particular thing that is inspiring, and try and really meditate on it, and like try to go really deep on what is inspiring to you. So in the same way, like, if you can focus on what is inspiring, then over time the faith will continue to develop. And it's like, focus on the positive instead of the negative, and then your ability to gain that firm faith and conviction will grow over time. Because we also recognize that it's, Srila Prabhupada said many times, this is not a instantaneous process of like, there's another a very popular spiritualist, I guess you could say, who wrote a few books throughout the 60s, who was like, I wouldn't even call him a contemporary of Srila Prabhupada, but that he would say that there was like, his guru touched him, and like through the touch of his guru, like he transmitted all of the knowledge immediately, and he just like automatically became like spiritually enlightened. And I've heard Srila Prabhupada mention that it's not like that. We have to keep in mind that we're in a gradual process, and that if in that gradual process, faith comes over time, and inspiration of focusing in on, being inspired by devotees that we see, even if it's devotees like that we know, that we can watch videos about, or something from, the 70s and the 80s, or something, that there's so many devotees that did really amazing things that we can like hone in on, that are inspiring. Like there's a devotee, his name is Tribhuvana from Ireland, and he's like super inspiring to me too. Like I always watch his videos like whenever I feel it. So I don't know, hopefully there's like a long-winded answer, but hopefully that gives some direction.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Sitting with the devotees, especially the advanced devotees who have that fire, associating with Prabhupada's books regularly, and the patience to let that faith develop over time. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
One thing I would say along those lines is definitely we should be looking up to all these wonderful devotees who have done amazing work. But even around us, even within our circle, there are so many devotees who do so much. It's just that we need to be open. And I'll just tell you, within our temple, in the kitchen, I have seen so many times Ganga Mantri Prabhu come quietly, do dishes and go back. Or he will say, oh, I found, really nice red ripe tomatoes. So can I make tomato chutney? Just simple things, but it is the devotion. And we should also be open. Not we should also be open, we should be open and be able to see those kinds of activities in devotees, because that is the essence of it. That is the essence of it. And these devotees have realized that it doesn't matter if it is big, visible service in front of everybody that is being done, or in the corner in the kitchen doing dishes when nobody sees. And then, so big and small, what is the common denominator is that devotion.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. What that makes me think of is like, this is the superior quality of this devotion is the superior thing. So, and we don't, I don't, at least for me, my mind wants to move towards material things that are indicators of success or something like that. But in actuality, it's not the outward result. I mean, there is that, like, judge the thing by its result, but there's that intention. You see the devotion, because that's what we're striving for, is having that internal mood of devotion. And so that's a wonderful point. It makes me think of, like, really not being enamored by material things, but really being able to have the intelligence and the awareness to see the quality of devotion in, rank and file, simple devotees, so to speak. Very nice.
Ritu Mataji, go ahead. I'm sorry I butched in.
It's okay, Mataji. I'm learning, listening also, so the same thing. Maybe my question is not really quite intelligent, but I just love the point when you actually compared Prabhupada with Sukdev Goswami, because just loved it that, that's what he did in 7 days, because our life is just circling in 7 days. So you never know when we'll be gone. So that was such a wonderful point, and I'm going to take it in my heart, because that's what I see, that 7 days in front of us, and we should just get the benefit out of it. Also, my question is, like, how can you? I have heard many times that Vaishnavas should keep away from the unmaterialistic people who are not devotional. They should keep them away from them. But when you have undevotional people in your home, how can you actually keep yourself away from them? Yes, you can serve them prasad, you can pray for them, but you cannot just leave them. And I have heard this so many times, you should not associate with these kind of people. So I don't know what to do.
There's another story anecdote that Prabhupada tells in regards to this. And for those we're living with, see, this is a little challenging, because we want to give our hearts to people, especially, like, we want to give our all. But when it comes to association with non-devotees, there's what we should be aware of, is that we should not be fully revealing and giving our heart to these non-devotees. We can be with them. We can allow them to take our association. Although what we don't want to do is be taking influence from them, taking influence from their ideas and concepts of life. They can tell us about it, they can talk about it, but we should always have an awareness that there's, personally, we're all equal in the sense of we're all brothers and sisters united under as servants of Krishna, as fragmental parts of God. But in the material world, if we're not careful, we can be dragged down by those that don't yet have that higher taste. So we should just guard our hearts from non-devotees. We can be around them. There's a story that Prabhupada tells about an alligator and a monkey that makes this point. And I don't have it fully, like, I'm not like fully connected to the story, but in one sense, like, there's a monkey in a tree, and then the alligator, and there's like a flood, and then the alligator comes and he tells the monkey, like, hey, get on my back, and I will take you to your family. And the alligator is really doing this because he wants to eat the monkey, and he wants to eat the monkey's family, but because he knows the monkey needs help. But the monkey's smart, and the monkey gets on, he gets on his back, and the alligator doesn't eat him because he wants to eat his whole family. But then as he's swimming him across the ocean, he says, I left my heart in the tree. Somehow there's like a story. He leaves his heart in he tells the monkey that he leaves his heart in the tree. I don't know. I will post the story because I don't know the whole thing. I'm sorry I didn't say it, but this is a perfect point about just how we should keep our heart protected from non-devotees, and that's it. And that we can be giving our association, but not taking their association. And it can be challenging, but we can do it by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and the spiritual master. So hopefully that helps. Just give association, but just, keep your heart a little bit protected.
Right, true. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank
That's
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else?
Just don't see any other hands up.
Hare
Oh,
Krishna.
Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam. Hare Krishna
Hare-
Mataji. I like the point, like Prabhu, you said to give an answer to Max Prabhu, like whatever, like you like it. Some people say like they don't understand, and you said like, okay, whatever hard for you, you leave aside, and whatever you understand, you read more and more of this part. Like that realization I had when I started like reading Bhagavatam the first time, and when I read the Canto 1 and chapter 2 and 28 and 9 sloka, like Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Mukha, Vasudeva para Yuga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapa, Vasudeva para Dharma, Vasudeva para Guru. That verses, Prabhu, it attracted me so much, and I don't wanted to go further out of this verse. Then I said, okay, I have to memorize this sloka. And I memorized it, and I try to like recite it every day. And I love that, verse and purport of Prabhupada. And this is like everything in there, in this verse. Like this is our goal. Like
Yes.
achieve, Krishna. So it's like that, Prabhu. It was so nice you pointed out that.
Yes, that's very nice. We just, when we can find something that really inspires us, and based on whatever our kind of path, there's so many verses, right? And every one has such potency that we can find those inspirational verses and just really dig into them, because there's no end to the depth of every verse, every word, every syllable can be driven down to the deepest core beyond anything that we can imagine. So thank you very much. That's we find that inspiration and just use it up.
Thank you, Prabhu.
On one thing I just want to say, there's a link I'm gonna leave for this. I'm putting it in the chat. It's for that story for the crocodile that says, "Don't give them your heart." It's a story from Srila Prabhupada. So anyone wants to read that, because I butchered it and messed it all up. So please read it. It's a quick read. Hare Krishna. So is anything else? Okay, now it's time for prasadam in the temple. Hare Krishna. Oh, Kalpesh. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. So I was thinking about the Ritu Mataji question, and something came in my head, so I wanted to say that in the Shastras, we have a couple of things that I mentioned as not necessarily, I don't mean to say that one who is not devotee is necessarily like a Hiranyakashipu, but there are extremes like Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad, right? Prahlad was too much convicted about devotion life. So even though he was in the bad association like Hiranyakashipu, that extreme, but he continued to remain convicted, and his behavior was displaying it. So once we are in that kind of situation, because no two people will be similar, in the devotional life, there will be some kind of difference always, because our past karmas are working, how we are conceiving life, what is our source of influences, and all those things factors into our mind processing. So keeping conviction and faith in the process, and displaying the best Vaishnava behavior, like a par dukha dukhi kind of thing, So if we try our best in that way, then I think so. I have heard from previous speakers that that one who continues keep on doing the devotion when we are connected with that principle, there are situations and there are examples in the ISKCON itself, where this is very common example which Ritu Mataji brought up, that you can make your family members into a devotee. It's possible. It can become possible, because in the ISKCON itself there are so many examples like that, and people have this similar situation. But if we keep on doing that, then one day will come. But it's the only the utsa nishaya dharya kind of thing, we have to keep patience, and have conviction, and in the process itself, one day it will fructify, because that is what we as a Vaishnava we have to strive. So that was I just thought about it, so I wanted to talk.
Yes, very nice.
I'm myself not so much perfect, so I understand my own weaknesses. In all the situation, I try to see what I am not doing right versus trying to find faults, maybe on others, because not necessarily every time other person is wrong in every situation. So we have to try to see our own weaknesses also. So I always I'm learning to project that way for myself, and trying to see that the world is not a perfect place and it cannot become perfect place. So it is only about my liberation, about my own mind, how I conduct every time. So this is what I'm trying to practice. I'm miserably failing many times, but still I'm trying to endeavor for that. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you for
Thank
that
you,
point.
Prabhuji, for
Yes.
that.
Yes, thank you. We can endeavor to help those around us and tolerate the situation, and we can, yes, know that if we keep trying and keep trying, our family members can also become devotees, and we have this duty to give the effort. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, I don't see any other hands up, so we can end the class here. We'll meet again tomorrow morning at 7:50 for Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Jai. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo.
Kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, Sasi-sekhara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Wonderful
you.
class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful, nice class.